All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the USA Rugby Clubhouse. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Petrie, joined by a very sore and very jet-lagged Ben Foden after landing from Seattle a couple of hours ago. But wait, hold on, folks. Before we start talking about this past weekend and your jet lag and everything else, looking back at last week, I kind of let this one fly under the radar, and it's been itching at me for the past week when we had Giddo and Adam Ashley Cooper on. I think I had Gitz take a hit here at my accent a little bit when he thought that maybe it was fake, and he was like,
No, I think he just liked the accent, dude. He just liked it.
Maybe
Gitz is hard to read. Gitz is a very hard to read person. He has that face that just sort of says, "Yeah, I've done this a million times, and I can't be asked."
He was unimpressed.
He's not. I think that's just Gitz. I just think that's him. And then you've got Coops, who's full of life and cracking jokes and.
But I'm sitting here and I'm like, look, you guys are in Hollywood, right? You're in Hollywood. It doesn't mean that everybody out there has got fake accents, right? Like it's everybody's an actor. Like, it's just, it is what it is, man. Deal with it. Like, but what a show that was. That was so cool. And to have that opportunity to sit and just chat with two legends like that, I mean, unbelievable. And I'm so happy that they're having such a good experience here so far in Los Angeles.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? You've got two rugby legends, both over 100 caps each for Australia, both played for some of the best teams in the world, like Toulon and Bordeaux, and been to World Cup finals and all that sort of stuff. And now they're out in LA, suddenly playing for this new franchise in the new league. They've got a lot of eyes on them. A lot of their mates who are also playing high levels of rugby are watching. And so to hear them talk so highly of it, of what they're doing, obviously the level of play as well as all the, settling down into LA lifestyle and being part of the Hollywood crew. It's great for the game. It's going to be great for the game internationally wise. I think people are watching it thinking, if they're doing it and enjoying it. And LA they are a good team at the moment. And we'll go into them again, another massive performance of the weekend. And we've got them the next weekend coming up. So hopefully we can find another gear because something needs to happen to stop these LA boys from just dominating this league and running away with it.
But you know what that's like with everybody calling you up to try to get in the door here in MLR, right? And they see what it's like. And so the fact that they're putting out those positive vibes, I mean, I can only imagine every Wallaby that's ever put on a gold jersey has been like calling them up, be like, look, get me in. Be like, I want to come in. How do I get in? Because when I went over to the UK and I was at Sale, that was one of the first things that just about anyone there asked was like, when is rugby going professional in America? Because I want to go play in the US. I want to play in the States. But anyway, that's
everyone loves America. Everyone loves America. Like everyone loves the way American sports is. It's larger than life. You have cheerleaders. You have big kissing Cambu things and some crazy shows and guys shooting t-shirts into the crowd. English people, as sports people, we love that because we see that and we see it as a big event and we want a part of that. So when you talk about rugby leagues going up in America, everyone's like, oh, yeah. But the problem is as well that these guys need to make a living. So it's different for someone like Adam Ashley Cooper and Gitz who've come over at the end of their career and they've come over for the right reasons because they wanted to help, grow the game and get stuck in and help this league really grow. Whereas, a lot of guys who are 25, 26 in their prime, they're looking for the big paycheck. And obviously when you think American sports, you think the big paycheck, but that's something that's not yet to come into the MLR yet. But when it does.
They're barking up the wrong tree here.
Exactly.
There's not much happening here.
But when it does, it's only a matter of time. And when that checkbook comes and the big money comes, I think you'll probably have some of the biggest players in the world from all over the world coming over to the American League to play. Watch this space.
Speaking of big players, we got a couple coming on our show from Rugby ATL in a few moments. And we'll talk about them. But let's chat a little bit about some of the games this past weekend. So you are obviously looking a little bit worse for the wear and jet lagged after your long journey home from Seattle. So tell us, how'd it go for you boys in New York? I mean, what a second half performance and what a comeback.
It was sort of like watching the Rooney of old, though. We've tried to go out this year and play this brand of rugby where we're running everything and taking quick taps and trying to run out of our own half and exiting through running the ball. And you know what? It just wasn't working against Seattle. And we were making mistakes and they were jumping on the mistakes and scoring tries. And we found ourselves down by 15 at halftime. And at halftime, we just sort of came in and said, listen, we're going to play a bit more of a territory battle. When they kick the ball to us, we're going to kick the ball out past the halfway line, lean on our line out to sort of disrupt theirs. And we clawed our way back into the game, because I think it showed a lot of character from our team, because there have been games like that where we've just shut off and gone, oh, we're down by 15. And we just keep compiling errors and find ourselves in a bit of quicksand, making errors on errors, and then they score again and again. So actually, I think we showed a different side of us this week, and scrapped our way back. And then, we did our best to lose at the end, Mikey, to be honest. We turned over the ball with a minute and a half left, and Conor McManus tried to chip the ball through when we should have just held on to it. And then Big Benny Bonasso gave away a high tackle at the end, with Matt Turner just hitting it right of the post, which let us off the hook as well. So it sort of sums up the Eastern Conference, I think, our game against Seattle. Like, anyone could have won it. It could have gone any way until the final kick of the game. And luckily, we did come out on the right side of that result. But saying that, we didn't play our best rugby. We've got plenty to work on. And so hopefully we'll get better. And we know that we're playing LA next weekend. And if we don't sort things out, then it could be a long day at the office next week.
So just out of curiosity, how different was the atmosphere there? Because I remember when we went out there a couple of years ago, right? At this point now, it would have been, I don't know if we played, it was the season before, so it was even going back to 2019. And going out to Starfire, I mean, that's a tough place to play. They would pack out that stadium. They had, the the Seawolf mascot there, and it was, I mean, that was a jumping place, and that energy, I think, fed that Seattle program.
Yeah, definitely.
There was only like 500 people there or something, right?
Yeah, I think there's still COVID laws, so they can only let in a certain amount of people. But they had a good crowd there. But you're completely right. Yeah, I remember the first couple of times going down to Seattle, it was packed out, and they talk about the 16th man having an impact on the game, and they certainly did that. And it's the first time that Rooney have beat Seattle during, since turning professional as well. So it was a good feather to have in our cap, that we can sort of mark that one off and say we beat Seattle, the two-time champions. But yeah, you're completely right. It's a little bit of a different atmosphere down there as well. Everyone loves a winner. So when things are going well and you're winning, your crowd, really help you and get behind you. But when things are badly, that's when a crowd can sort of get on your back as well. But I think with the changes that are going on at Seattle at the moment as well, they've just changed all the backroom staff. New coaches are coming in. Rory Best from Ireland's coming in. I think they're looking to shake things up a little bit. They've had a few injuries as well, and now they're sort of getting their full team back together. I think this season is really going to be a transition season for them. I think they've slipped too far behind in that Western Conference now to be sort of competing at the end of the season. So they're just looking to string some performances together, get some confidence back up, and be looking for year 4, I think.
But speaking of wacky games and big second half performances, I mean, that Toronto New Orleans game, another one that was like, Toronto came out hot, as they have the past couple of weeks. And then the second half and just that whole second part of the game seemed to have been all NOLA, like coming back to win that one.
2 tries in 12 minutes was it for the big wing from Toronto? And so literally I sort of turned it off thinking, they're going to run away with it now, because Toronto have sort of really hit form and they found the way they like to play. And suddenly NOLA just find themselves back in it. There was a mistake by Mariarez, wasn't there? And he fumbles the ball out, really put them on the front foot. And then they got ahead, and that was it. It was the last 5 minutes, you're sort of umming and ahhing whether Toronto could steal it, and they sealed it with another try, NOLA. So again, it just shows where this league is. NOLA really do have it in them to put in big performances, especially at home. You saw when they played us, and they really stuck it to us. And obviously, playing a Toronto side that were very much tails in the air, looking like they were finding their way of playing games and starting to run some good form together. And suddenly NOLA turn it on and beat them as well. So it's done us a favor, really, because NOLA beating Toronto has meant that we can go top again by winning this weekend at Seattle. So the East Conference is well and truly up in the air. So it's going to be interesting the next couple of weeks to see who sort of gets that ascendancy.
It is, I think, a little bit more exciting of a picture in the East Coast than it is on the West Coast. I mean, they had that doubleheader out there this weekend, and I saw a special appearance there by Steve-O on the sidelines.
Steve-O, they're bringing everyone in.
Which had me laughing a little bit, but yeah. So two back-to-back games there. You find that San Diego still just can't get out of that rut that they're in. I mean, New England going in and we talked about cross-country travel sometimes being a factor in this, with teams flying so late in the week and then not really having enough time to acclimate. But New England really showed none of that. I think their 9, speaking of scoring back-to-back tries, like New England's 9 scored back-to-back tries almost immediately too, with like 2 tries within a couple minutes.
Yeah. I'll tell you who's really impressed me, Dougie Fife, the Scottish Sevens player, is coming to the New England, playing at 13. He played on the wing start of the season. He might have played 15 as well a bit, but he's scoring tries, looking sharp. They're using him well. He looks like he's enjoying his rugby. But New England, again, are another weird one. Another weird, they look like, one week they look like world beaters who they could beat anyone because their defense is so stingy and they're scoring tries and playing great rugby, and then suddenly they'll lose to a random team that you're thinking, oh God, I thought New England would win that one. So it's been very bizarre, and you're completely right again about San Diego. They just go off the boil. They just seem to be lacking that sort of physicality, the sharpness that they had over the previous years, especially last year when they had such a powerful centre partnership in JP and Nonu. Both players have now moved on. They just seem to be missing that killer edge. I mean, they've still got Sam Wuxing, who's playing brilliant rugby still. He never gives up. He's definitely the heartbeat of that side. But a few of the other guys have sort of been a bit slow to the party, and it looks like they're going to be another team that are just going to be focusing on this year to sort of get some confidence build up around planning for the next year, because I think they're getting to a point now where they're similar to Seattle. They've lost too many games, and the distance between those top 4 and bottom 2 in that Western Conference is just going to be too much for them to do.
It's going to be a big mountain to climb, that's for sure, because Los Angeles has made it very clear that they have no intent of slowing down and not putting at least like 40 points on the board every weekend. So you have this to this weekend. Speaking of
this is the thing with LA, they are winning games by halftime.
Yeah.
And then they're making all the substitutes, and then it becomes a bit more of a game. But they are, 25, 30 points up by halftime. And when that's done, it's very hard in this league to sort of to pull back a lead like that. And so that seems to be the consistent thing from LA. The only game they didn't do it was the Houston game, where Houston managed to stay in it. And it's the only time they've looked vulnerable. But in all these other games, and again at the weekend, we saw against DC, I can't remember what the score, 33-6, I think it was, something like that at halftime, and the game was dead and buried. But looking at DT Van der Merwe, he looks like he's 25 again. He's playing unbelievable rugby. The forwards are playing awesome. A chip kick from the bloody prop forward to put in DT Van der Merwe. It's just, what can't they do, this lot? It's kind of annoying, but also very satisfying to watch them play this level of rugby, but obviously a bit daunting in the fact that we have to play these guys next week.
You know what it's like when you've got your confidence up, folks. I mean, It's like everything works, right? Everything works. You just, and you're not afraid to try it. And that's when you're genuinely playing your best. And you can see that in the LA side. I mean, their first phase attack is unbelievable. Their ability to put people through gaps and bring runners seemingly out of nowhere. I mean, and then just the support lines that they run. I just feel like every time you look at them, there's like black and pink jerseys or white and pink jerseys everywhere around the ball.
They can hit you from anywhere on the field. Their counter-attack, their turnover balls, like you said, first phase strike plays, they are a very dangerous team. And we need to do our homework in trying to figure out how to beat this team, because at the same time, though, when you sit at the top of the hill, you're there to be shot at. So one day things won't go all their way at the bounce of the ball, especially when they're going to come down here to Jersey City and see where they'll be playing at Cochrane Stadium. So we'll see. It'll be an interesting week's preparation, but looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing, what kind of caliber they are and just how good this team are, because they have been lighting it up so far.
Speaking of things to look forward to, we have a lot more to look forward to on the show. We've got some really great guests coming up from Rugby ATL, and you and I get to talk about all things games to look forward to on the weekend. But before we do that, let's have a look back at this past weekend's MLR highlights, brought to you by the MLR.
Victor Comtad is there with him. Mitchell, short ball, Wuching. Ball's been pinched, here it comes, Waganabao, looked around, Puwasa Waganabao, flicks it back in field to his best friend and teammate John Poland, who gets a double. Together we ride, they say. That's 3 unanswered tries from the Free Jacks.
Blistering start, but a telling turnover there. Normally sure-handed Psalm Wuching with the ball and just gives it up in the tackle. Stripped nicely by the Free Jacks.
He's got that long arm over and pinched it. Fife yet again, they work the short side. Dummy's thrown. Back to Dougie Fife. Fife looking for the line. Fife is over yet again! Oh my Fife! This guy's brilliant. Just a cousin of William Wallace, and here's another look at it.
Watch 13, watch the change of pace right there, the burst. Sees it, waits for it. Pete Malcolm with the throw.
Good first throw from the US capped international. Malcolm goes in to help now. Has possession, does Pete Malcolm from Maryland. Sets the backs away, lures to Africa. Beautiful ball to Mattias. Mattias in a bit of space. Ryan Mattias points to the outside, and he's over. Ryan Mattias has come back with that stash and made it fashionable.
Is there, and watch Cecil Africa, how he holds the ball through the tackle, just an instant. Just makes the defender bite. He's off the hook.
Quick line out, they go. Poitevin, Prince Poitevin pulls it back to Gitto. Flat ball to Adam Ashley Cooper, still going. Adam Ashley Cooper, stunning skill. On the outside, Langi Halpia Kui for the line, he's over. It's a stunner from Los Angeles. Adam Ashley Cooper has been playing since the days of the fax machine, and he puts in a beautiful ball.
Strike, and they had the opportunity to pin him down in their own half, and they just make a mistake, and it ends up in this. It's Palamo, can't get Ashley Cooper to the ground. He uses the tripod technique, keeps his body up, keeps him on his feet.
Out wide now. We've got some room.
Nice tackle on Massage.
New Orleans fighting for their life here again.
There's the big fella.
There's Montero. He's got it. He's got it. Hits the first try of the day, delivered by who else? Manuel Montero, La Pantera, they call him back in Argentina. Arrow's got some momentum here now.
Yeah, they've got a nice little wedge here.
They're moving. Nola Gold defenders are shedding away. Watch this now. Looks like they have numbers outside.
That's beautiful. Step back inside.
That's Mirez.
That's top.
Over to Montero for the try.
Yeah, that's top drawer stuff. Watch Mirez's left foot step here on, boom, right there, just right by Tim Maupin. Nice play by Hanno Dirksen coming over and cover, but
Gilman almost gets it, almost finds his break. Devin Short now.
There's Julian Dominguez.
Dominguez scores in the corner. At the barest of margins. Let's make sure Mr. Dominguez is okay from that score. Let's see how this came together. Limit almost had it. Stevens recycles over to Short. Oh, clearly, right across the line there on the very, very edge, Jeffrey.
Comes to social distancing, I'm told about 500 fans total here today, but that really isn't tempering any of the enthusiasm here, as you can hear right now from the crowd.
Ross Neal delights the fans, gets the first try, stunning bit of skill from Seattle. Joy and celebration, they're at home, and what a homecoming it is. Ripto to Seattle. They'll bang this one downfield again. Excellent defense from the seawall. And a very big relieving kick as well. It's not out though. Hume has a crack. Watch the steps come here. Luke Hume, couple of steps. They read it. Two players onto him. And another huge tackle picks up for Neal on the outside. Neal! As unpredictable as Bitcoin. Ross Neal gets it for a double. It's SeaWorld's magic.
Ross Neal, but Hume finds Ellis, and then J.P. Smith. Ellis never sees him coming.
Sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. sport can create hope where once there was only despair.
Hi, my name's Mark O'Keefe. I play for Rugby ATL, and you're watching the USA Rugby Clubhouse.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Misailegalu. I play for Rugby ATL, and you're watching USA Rugby Clubhouse.
All right, folks. So we are joined tonight by two of Rugby ATL's finest, two dynamic electric players from their back line. First, we have the only one among us, I think, who's won an MLR title, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yes.
Yeah. So the only one of us that's won an MLR title to his name. So, Jeremy, congratulations. So Jeremy Misailegalu is with us tonight. And then Mark O'Keefe, our former New Yorker, who's decided to move down south and bleach his head blonde. So, but so fellas, how's life down in ATL? How are things down there with the Rattlers?
It's pretty great. It's actually been raining all day today, so it's been pretty much.
Yeah, we had a pretty easy day today, so not much you can do. I'm pretty sure there's a tornado outside in Atlanta right now, so definitely stay indoors for today.
That weather in Atlanta is like so hit or miss. I mean, I remember being down there. It's just massive storms in the middle of the day, and it just rolls through real quick, but then it's gone. And it's nothing like New York, Mark. Nothing like Randall's Island, Nothing like
Jesus Christ. No,
well,
nothing like Randall's Island.
So listen, I actually have a question, and Mark, I know a little bit about you already, so I'm going to sort of put you on the back burner to start with. We're going to talk to our MLR champion here, Jeremy. So Mark, I assume you grew up playing as a kid right back home in Ireland. So Jeremy, you have kind of an interesting background, an interesting story into how you got into professional rugby. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey to the professional ranks here in the United States with rugby?
Yeah, I mean, I went to college in New Mexico, found rugby in New Mexico, Highlands University, and after that, I played for Seattle the first year, and then the second year played for Utah, and then made my way here to Atlanta.
So Jeremy, would you consider, just doing a little bit of background reading on you, and not enough surely, but would you consider yourself a crossover athlete? Had you played sports before, right?
Yeah, I'm still learning the game, and there's still little things that here and there learning. So I definitely would be a crossover athlete for sure.
See, that's really cool, because especially for guys like myself, we always look at the X factor that crossover athletes like yourselves bring, like when they finally get an opportunity to really understand the nuances of the game of rugby, just how much value they can add to the rugby field. And how have you found that transition? I think your background is football and wrestling, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah. Man, just still learning, little bits of the game and like different kind of cuts that football players do compared to rugby. That's extremely hard, and just learning how to defend those kind of cuts as well. But it's just a lot of learning to do, So that's like probably the hardest thing. It's just all the little learning.
What position were you in football?
Running back.
Yeah. And running back, and now you're in the centers, right? So you're a midfield player and a back three. Where you find your home on a rugby field?
I'm really wing. I've been playing wing for most of the season, so yeah.
Cool. So, because I know, like, folks, you and I have spoken about this, right? We had our, when we were talking about like which NFL players would make a good transition into rugby. This kind of came up, and it was like, who would you put where, and how would people convert into the sport? And so, Jeremy, we're always trying to attract those crossover athletes from the different sports. And so I think a lot of people are quite hesitant because they don't really understand rugby. So that, when you talk to them and you approach them, they're like, I don't really know. Like, what kind of advice would you have for someone who's maybe on the fence about, I play these other sports, and now I want to try rugby? Yeah,
so it kind of like happened like in college. We'd always get those guys who kind of like quit football, and people like try to tell them, come to play some rugby, man. It's a different game. It's fun. You could play defense and offense, but they would always just get scared that because we didn't have pads, we were crazy. They always call us insane for playing rugby. But I mean, my advice is just like the fact that you can play offense and defense, and it's continuous play. Like, there's nothing better than that. And then like just the camaraderie afterwards, man. In football, you're meant to hate your opposing guys, or you're supposed to hate the other team. But like in rugby, man, I've never found a better environment. Like, it's just crazy. So I guess my advice would be the camaraderie, and then the ongoing offense and defense. The best.
I wanted to give you a chance to speak, Fodes, if you wanted to, but if not, I'll keep going. Because speaking of crazy, Mark O'Keefe, man, how the heck are you?
I'm good, bro. How are you? Great to see you.
Speaking of culture, right? Jeremy brought up culture. How is, you've been one of the, I guess, select few players in Major League Rugby who's been able to see both sides of the coin. You've been here in New York, so you see what it's like to be, a new kid on the block coming into the league. Now you're down in Atlanta. They're also somewhat still also in that same category of like new kid on the block. Like, how have you found the dynamics, the culture, the adjustment? How are things going for you? What do you notice that's different in each of the clubs, maybe?
To be honest, like both teams are unbelievable and stuff, but I kind of found it's very tough in New York to have space. Obviously, that like we fight for everything in terms of sometimes you'd have pitch in an hour away from your gym, and which is an hour away from physio, which is an hour away from your house. So you could be in the subway for 4 hours a day, literally. Whereas down here we have everything just in one place. We all live in one place called the Walton on the Chattahoochee, and then 15 minutes away is HQ, where you have your S&C. We have a 50-meter pitch, I think it is, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Something like that. A gym. We have meeting rooms. We have a PlayStation, which is good crack. We have massive TVs and stuff. We have lounge couches. But that's obviously comes because land is much cheaper down here, and like it's much easier to get stuff like that around here. Whereas in New York, obviously, you have to fight for every single second of it. So
I see
different. It's different, but it's good.
I see steam coming out of Fodes' ears. Fodes, you guys have PlayStation, right? And couches and you're.
I don't think Fodes could do down here. Fodes can't leave the city.
Los Angeles has the basketball court and the coffee machine. You guys, come on, Fodes.
People are moaning. The people don't even know they're born. They moan about the certain things. You've got LA moaning about their buffet area and their DJ decks.
We get food as well.
Mark O'Keefe moaning about having a 50-meter indoor pitch to train on. Jesus. Come on, Mark. You know what it's like in New York. You know what it's like.
We all can't live in Brooklyn. There you go.
No, but there's definitely a lot of challenges that come with being in and around New York, Mark, right? I mean, you recognize some of them. Fodes is sort of living it now. I think, New York is in a situation where just even finding a home ground has been a challenge this season. And so for you all, you seem to have found a home there at Life. And I think, Jeremy, you spent some time playing at Life, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Sure.
So how, in terms of the university and the relationship that you have maybe with players from Life filtering into the Atlanta side, I mean, how does that relationship work? I mean, Scott Lawrence is, was for one time and might have still be in some way like the pulse and the heartbeat of the Life Running Eagles program. So is there like a really good pipeline between that local talent there and Life and Atlanta Old White to Rugby ATL?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see it through the academy team 4-4. You got a lot of those guys. As soon as they leave Life in their hometown, they go to the 4-4 academy. So I think that's really that pipeline with that academy team that we have, as well as the Life band. So it's just a good little competition in there, and then it's just so easy for those guys because the college is right there. They got a professional team in their same city, so you just know your connects and work your way through it. So that's what I can see.
Cool. And so one thing is, so you spoke about the academy with 404, and I know you played there. So one question I just started yesterday was actually our first session with the academy kids for New York. And it was the first time we ran this under 23s program. And I'm really excited about it. And I think the more these Major League Rugby teams can get academy programs up and running, the better it's going to be. But as someone who's played in the academy system, I know you gave the advice previously about the crossover athletes, so you've seen that side of it, but I'm going to go to you for advice again now. What sort of advice would you have for these kids that are in these academy systems that are maybe looking to make that jump to Major League Rugby? Just how big is that gap between playing for 404 and playing, Rugby ATL against Los Angeles or New York or whatever, whoever?
It's a big jump, and sometimes there's going to be bumps in the road, and you just always got to grind. You got to start from, the bottom, and you just keep pushing. And I think there's times when people get on the bench when they want to be starting, and then that's like their first diversity. And there's a saying like, if you win, don't stop. If you lose, don't quit. So that's a big thing. You just keep the intensity, and you just have to show up 110% at the time. But yeah, there is such a big jump between the academy and professional, of course. But if you want to make it to that next level, you just keep grinding, doing the extras.
I think these two guys are prime examples of guys, because obviously Jeremy's been to Seattle, he's been to Utah, and now he's found his home at Atlanta. Same with Mark at New York. But where it's very important that young players as well, realize that coaches, you don't always see eye to eye with coaches, and some coaches don't get you and you don't get coaches. But I think these two guys are prime examples of when they've got into a scenario where people have trusted them and they have risen to the top. Because Mark, you signed with Atlanta late in the season because you were hoping to re-sign with New York, and it didn't quite happen. And then you came in, sort of 2 games late with a bit of a chip on your shoulder, and you started off with a bang, scored 3 or 4 tries in your first 3 games. Same with you, Jeremy. You got the opportunity to start for Atlanta, and you've been ripping up and scoring tries as well. So it's good to see that. Do you think that's something that's helped working with different coaches and sort of finding out what kind of players you are?
Yeah, I think especially with Coach Lawrence, like obviously I was pretty late to the party here. I literally just I was sitting home in Dublin just doing 2 gym sessions a day. Kind of, I was ballpark about to stop and just play club rugby in Ireland, get a job and settle down to be a real person. But I got a text from Coach Scott Lawrence, and he basically just gave me the opportunity. And as soon as I got here, he was like, I've always found myself to give people the opportunities that they deserve, and you've taken it. So I'm just glad that he's given me the one opportunity that I wanted, and he thought I deserved anyway.
Same with you, Jeremy. Do you feel like this is the club that's really brought you to the forefront, given your opportunities?
Oh, yeah, I completely agree with everything Mark said. Just jumping on opportunity and just going full tilt.
So, question from my end. So I know, folks, I feel like for us, and maybe Mark, you might know a little bit of this too. I feel like in New York, we have this rivalry with Toronto that's sort of organically starting to cultivate, right? Everyone's got from other sports the New York, New England rivalry. I haven't seen that yet in rugby. I didn't feel it when we played the Free Jacks that first time. Maybe just because it was the first time when we were playing last year. You didn't feel that same sort of like hyped up rivalry in the locker room. But I felt that against Toronto. Atlanta, you guys are kind of like isolated down there in the southeast corner, right? And so when people life is down there, and it's like, who's life's real live rival? And at the time, everyone that played for life, their rivals were all way up in the Northeast. So from your perspective as an ATL player, who is like your rival it could be the Eastern Conference, I would assume, but maybe someone from the West Conference. Like, who do you see on your calendar and you're like, I can't wait to play that team because that's our big rivalry?
New York. For me. Didn't have the greatest game against you, but no, that would be for me. But our actual rival is New Orleans.
I think one of our rivals should be, and it is, I think, DC. DC, definitely.
Man, we're all over the shop. We got DC, we got New York, we got
I guess you
just like you guys hate everybody. You don't like anybody down there. Everybody's your rival. Unbelievable. Gee. So, but one thing we have spoken about, and Ben and I brought this up earlier, a team we've been impressed with, we've talked about, is the Houston SaberCats and a lot of the community work that they've done there. And I know for a long time, the rugby community in Atlanta has just been a really, really good stronghold of rugby culture, especially on the East Coast, right? For a long time, it was a lot of rugby in the Northeast from DC up. There was some stuff going on in the Carolinas. It was a little bit quieter at the top level. Then you hit Atlanta, right? And Atlanta was a hotbed, and then everything below Atlanta, like Florida, has its own rugby culture. But when you talk about like the premier level, like going back to the Rugby Super League era, it was really just Atlanta. So they have a good community there. How have you found yourselves? I know it's a little bit weird and different during COVID, but how have you found your activism within the community and the engagement and the relationship that Rugby ATL has with everyone in and around that area?
We have a lot of youth rugby. So, we got guys who help out in that the youth rugby community there, and then we do have 4-4 Friday nights with the youth.
I remember I think it was my first weekend I was here. Coach Scott put into the group saying who's up for helping out. I think it was a boys, it was like a young boys club that basically their father figures weren't in the picture, and I think it was like an hour and a half away in the middle of nowhere, sticks in the middle of nowhere, and I think there was 30 of our players put our hands up, and we basically just cleared out like log cabins that are basically going to be like summer camps for the boys that are basically, they don't really have a father figure, or like their family is like pretty broken up or something. So I mean, obviously he drives us to be part of the community as well as helping the community as much as possible.
It's really cool. That's unbelievable. It's like, I love when you hear that kind of stuff about the team getting involved in the community, because that's such a huge piece to it. So now, side story, I see the logo on your chest, but you've got a secondary logo, the Rattlers, right? That's it organically came, I think, out of the RATL, if I'm not mistaken. And then Chance comes in there, and I remember sitting next to him on flights flying around the country last season, and he's got that awesome artwork, and I think he came up with that rattlesnake logo, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, he did.
So speaking of the community, when are you guys going to start handing out like little noisemakers that sound like rattles, right? When at the game. So this way, when people score, when Mark O'Keefe scores or Jeremy scores, and everyone, like, you get the rattlers going. You know, I think we're all about the entertainment. We're all about the entertainment.
I think we have to get on to Kevin McCarry for that.
Get on, Kev. Tell him you need rattlers for people when they come in. Like,
it's a pretty good idea.
That's like, come on, folks. We're full of ideas on this.
Oh, mate, I love it. I love it.
Beginning.
Okay.
So obviously you're linked with Met University as well. That's where they play. Your home ground is their home ground. Do you get a lot of, like, what kind of crowds do you get? Do you get a mix of like the university lot or a lot of local guys who are supporting the local rugby team? What's the kind of crowd sort of atmosphere like when you play Atlanta?
So it's in Marietta, which is like, I don't think I've ever seen a bigger rugby town in America. Like there's everyone kind of, it's funny because in New York, obviously you're a small fish in a big pond. Nobody had a clue, Fouds, Petty, nobody had a clue who we were.
I don't have a clue, mate.
You loved it at the start, but no one had a clue who you were. But over here, like, you'd walk around and people would actually know you, which is strange because I never really had that in my life. And obviously when you get back to, when you didn't talk of the crowds and stuff, it could literally be anybody. Like I remember playing Atlanta last year for New York, and the place was packed, and it's crazy to think that, because I don't know how many people it could, maybe 4,000, 5,000. I'm kind of guessing here, but like it's still a good bit of people. And like even every single week this year, a home match, they're all sold out, even though we have a limited crowd. It's still pretty loud. It's crazy how loud it can get sometimes.
So wait, so Fodes, now Mark and Jeremy, you may know about the Marietta Diner, right? In the area down there, which has the most unbelievable assortment of cakes that I've ever seen in my life. So Fodes, as a man with a sweet tooth, when you go down,
ridiculous
pre-game meal, you could just take all your Skittles that you like to eat before your game, just dump them on top of it. They just put that stuff in a cake, and you can go down the Marietta Diner right down the road from Life's campus.
Why are you doing me like this, Mike? You know that I'm an ultimate professional. You know my nutrition is top notch. Mark, you have to talk us through the hair, dude. What's going on with the hair? I can't leave it. You got to explain me why. You were playing well anyway, and you've just said everyone knows your name in Atlanta, so you thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to dye my hair blonde, so everyone knows even more who I am. I'm the idiot who dyed my hair blonde.
Yeah, basically the idiot. But I just thought I had to do it once in my life, and I just thought this would be a good time to do it. I didn't think it was going to go as yellow. I kind of wanted to go white, but it's gone yellow. But the day I got it, we flew to Austin that day, and coach came up to me and was like, well, now everyone's going to know you if you mess up or play well. So probably do the same, basically.
And did the extra small polo shirt come with the haircut as well?
Oh God, full of it.
What polo are you wearing? You wearing it?
This is my one.
Well, that is pretty tight, though.
You two have obviously made a name for yourself in the past couple of weeks in the MLR. Who are some players that maybe fly under the radar a little bit in the league that people should pay more attention to in Atlanta that you played with, that you're like, wow, this kid can really play. This is a real rugby player, and maybe doesn't get the limelight all the time, but works hard at training, does all the right stuff, and is part of like the core values of who you are as Rugby Atlanta, maybe?
I think people actually still do know him, but Matt Heaton for me he's one of those people that just puts his head somewhere where people don't want to put it. And then he told me before that he was 2-time Canadian Player of the Year, and just see playing with him the way he's our two captains. He's our captain now because Ryan Nell is injured at the moment as well. Playing with him, he just commands the field very well, and like I'm actually surprised he hasn't had a shot over in somewhere else like in Europe. When I asked him about it, I was pretty shocked, to be honest. But I think he's definitely someone, not so much flies under the radar because he's definitely well known, but he does the stuff that myself, Jeremy, Foes, and Petri, you definitely don't want to do it either.
Come on, Mark. Give me some credit, man. Give me some credit.
Jeremy, I was going to ask you before, in terms of your training schedule from playing, because you mentioned that you're sort of crossover athlete playing American football. What's the training like compared to sort of when you used to play as an American football? How intense is American football training compared to Atlanta? Because I remember I was speaking to you, Mark, in the season, you say one thing that is a bit different about being in Atlanta is that you're all full time, and the training you do like 3 days in pre-season, which is quite intense. And I just see, like, you know, obviously there's different like athletes and different kinds of you're more of explosive athletes when it comes to NFL. So how was that transition from you getting into rugby?
Man, this is different kind of training styles, I guess. You know, you got in football, there's so many players, so like you could be watching and getting reps, and it's just stop and go. Whereas in the rugby, it's a lot, and it's a lot of going, it's a lot of running. You're running meters. We have GPSs, so like we track how much you're running. I've never ran so much in my life. I just yeah. It's definitely practice. Like training wise, it's so much harder in the rugby aspect than it is. But it's two different kinds of, you know, training. So
we spoke to Christian Wade, who's transitioned the other way around. So he was playing at Boston, now he's gone to the Bills. And he said one of the main big differences for him is that the playbook is like a book, and you have to learn so many different plays, and it's key to like sort of being successful in that game.
Yeah,
so there's a lot more like studying that goes into NFL, is there?
That's why I love rugby, because it's just, you know, you're playing right there. In football, I would always just mess up on that. It was one of my weaknesses. So yeah, there's a lot of plays to learn in football. There's hundreds of plays, to be honest.
So when did you first start playing rugby, Jeremy? When you were in high school or when you were in
I was in college, my second year in uni. So like 2014, that's when I started playing. Small town in New Mexico.
And do you think there's enough, you know, colleges playing rugby in terms of like, now it's professional in the MLR, now they've introduced the draft system. Is there enough colleges playing rugby consistently to, you know,
so I think
about the players coming through?
I guess the hardest part about that is the funding. So a lot of teams aren't getting funded, so like you don't get as many players, I guess, or people. And when you have those top names like Notre Dame or, you know, Life or Penn State, there's only so many teams in that. But so my league, it was in National Small College in Enscrow, and there's like a couple hundred there, but all of that was kind of funded out of your own pocket. Yeah. So I think that actually has a big effect on, you know, the rugby in the U.S. and college levels, because the money is really up at the bigger schools.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's my outtake on that.
Jeremy, speaking of your pathway, you started late, and you've obviously kind of gone at warp speed, right? Like for someone that's picked up the game so late in America and now that is a professional rugby player. I mean, I'm sure that there are many rugby players out there who are quite envious of how quickly you've taken to this. How much, and I think I read correctly that you went down and spent some time in New Zealand, if I'm right. Yeah. How much of an impact did that have on you as a player, and how much of a difference do you see in the environment as an American kid that went down there to play, to learn the game, and how you were coached and how you approached rugby versus what's going on here?
Yeah, so I went to New Zealand and everything, that's like the motherhood of rugby, I guess. But it was just physicality. I guess it wasn't too much structured, but at the same time, I really didn't know rugby when I went there. I went there for sevens, so I guess I was like different than 15s, But when I went there for sevens, it was just so much more physicality than anything. Whether you're small or big, they were hitting.
Because I remember when I was probably around that same age in college, I was, like you said, I went to Penn State, so there were some programs that we played against that were competitive and that were good, but some of the coaches that I was playing for were telling me, if you really want to take your game to the next level, you've got to go someplace like New Zealand. You have to be in that environment. You have to play at that level. You have to see the speed at which they play and experience it. And you have to be coached by people who truly understand what's going on. And I never really had a chance to go outside of tours with American teams there. But it seems to me that everyone that I've ever met that was an American player that went somewhere in the Southern Hemisphere, like Australia and spent the season, or New Zealand and spent the season, or even Ireland, Mark, and went to the Northern Hemisphere and spent the season, came back, 10 times the player that they were, right? Because the game is just so different.
Yeah, that's definitely actually, if I did go to New Zealand, I don't think my pathway would have been the way it was. Definitely when I went to New Zealand, the physicality part improved, and the knowledge and the little things that I didn't know, obviously being new to rugby, it definitely made an impact. Even though we're still learning the 15 style, but the sevens helped with just the confidence and my overall game. It's getting hot in here.
You chose wrong. You're in that closet, man. It's warm. You chose wrong.
Ooh, I sweat too, dog.
We were talking about you were taking your Zoom game to the next level, but now, man, you are regretting that decision to sit in the little space there. That is, you should have been like Foes, just to rent it out your own room.
Absolutely.
Man.
I'm having all sorts of problems here anyway. My battery's not charging my computer and stuff, so I'm worried that I'm going to go off. I'm still here, holding on.
You just landed though, Foes, as well from a cross-country trip.
Yeah, I've done my knee as well, which is, I'm sweating as well because my knee's hurting. But,
oh, man.
These two young...
listen, you can't give out stuff like that on the podcast. You can't talk about injuries on the podcast. Then the world knows. That's confidential stuff.
Broken mirrors, Mikey. Broken mirrors. Tell everyone you're injured. I'm really 100%, so that when go easy on me, but really. Okay, Mark, I wanted to talk to you about, because obviously I played with you out in Bermuda in the tens competition. You've been working really hard to get yourself fit, ready for the new MLR season. You were in talks with Rugby New York. They decided that they weren't going to keep you on. And then you mentioned that, you contemplated just packing it in, which would have been a real shame, because you've come back into the MLR and made a real impact, and you're playing so well, and been scoring tries and being one of the standout players for ATL. Just talk us through that mindset of, being only days away from deciding to go and have a normal job and play club rugby.
Yeah, I got back from Bermuda and I kind of said to myself, because the whole summer it just didn't really work out with any MLR teams, and I kind of set my goal that right, enough kidding around. If I come back from Bermuda, I'd give it 2 or 3 weeks, and if I don't get a team, to just can it. And to be honest, my friends and family, it's kind of cliche, everyone always says my friends and family drive you on. They actually wouldn't let me. My parents were like, no, you're not starting a real job, and so not a real job, sorry, we're not letting you become this person that you don't want to be yet, and sit down in an office and 9 to 5 for the rest of your life, because I know you don't want to be there. I don't think I could sit at an office like that at the moment. But yeah, I just kind of kept on waiting. There was a lot of weeks where I was like, oh, I can't keep doing this. Then Christmas came around. Obviously Christmas was good fun, but it just kept on coming along that I just was getting nowhere. And honestly, there was the day before Coach Scott Lawrence called me, I set up a new LinkedIn, because my old one was a bit muck, with my sister. And then the next day I was like, right, we're going to start applying for jobs. And then she goes, just hold tight for one more day. And lo and behold, Scott Lawrence.
It all pans out all in the end. All works
Crazy.
out. Boy.
Please,
Cowboy rides again.
Please, God, yeah. Let's keep it going. Let's never grow old.
We talked a lot about Jeremy's experiences, and Mark, we didn't give you a chance to speak yet. So, question: I actually don't know this. Were you involved in any of the provincial pathways back in Ireland for any of the academy programs there?
No, I did underage. So I was with Leinster 19s for a little bit. Actually, Greg McWilliams was my coach at Leinster 19s, and then went up to Connacht for under 20s. But that's really it. I was up in college there for a little bit, trained a small bit with in the setup, but not at all, really, to be honest.
So how have you found that transition from the level you were playing at in Ireland and sort of you weren't getting those opportunities, like you said, and then you come in here and the next thing you know, you're a professional rugby player in America? Like, that just seems like totally out of the blue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For a kid in Dublin, like, you probably wouldn't have known or expected that would be the case. And now here you are, like Ben says, lighting up the scoreboard in Major League Rugby. And there's probably a bunch of kids back home that are probably calling you saying, like, hey, how do I do this? Like, how does this happen? But I mean, in seriousness, how have you found that level of competition that you were playing at there, and what's going on here in the States?
Yeah, I mean, the school I went to back at home, St. Michael's, it's basically the Leinster feeding school at the moment. It's one of the most professional setups in the world, our school. Like, it's a lot of rugby, a little bit of school, especially for me. There wasn't much school, but like, it kind of, if you train at such a young age at a professional setup, like we were in the mornings, 7 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning to do gym, and then we'd have meetings at lunchtime, and then we'd have pitch after school. So that's basically a professional setup, just a little bit of bookwork in between. And then once we got out of school, I played with Lansdowne, and they'd be up there, one of the best club teams in Ireland. It'd be like Lansdowne and Corkon. There's Evan Minturn from New York plays for Corkon. And then, like, the AIL in Ireland generally is a really, really good league. Will Leonard obviously played in it. I think Jason Higgins as well plays in Toronto. So they're producing players. And like, the biggest thing, not the problem, but one of the things in Ireland is there are really good players that just never really get a chance. Like, there's better players than me in Ireland that never got a chance, really, and they kind of just welted away and just ended up basically doing what I was going to do and stop playing rugby and getting a job. Whereas now, obviously, the pathway to come to America is there for them. So I think you're going to see a lot more Irish young kids that coming out of school that kind of focus on making it over here. Not because it's easier, but it is generally, to be honest, instead of playing for Leinster. But also the lifestyle and like the journeys you go on, like traveling the whole of America every year, all these different cities. I mean, you can't really beat that, can you?
Jeremy, listening to him talk about his experience at St. Michael's, I never played big time Division I athletics in college, but like, I feel like that's what the same model is. It's that same, like, rugby at St. Michael's is probably like your Division I sports program in college in the US. You know what I mean?
One of the main things about being a rugby player is you create memories, obviously winning games, winning trophies, and that's what's being history makers. But what you're left with is always, the friendships you make and the culture inside the club. So we want to know what it's like, on the road with Hotlanta when you tour with the boys. Obviously, COVID's been a bit restricting, but what's the culture like within the club? And what are the sort of fun things about touring when you go to new cities? Having a few beers in the local pub, or we were down in Vegas last year, Marky, for the COVID season, and we did a big club session where we took all the boys out to a big club in Vegas. What's it like with the team bonding? How have they helped you do that? Obviously, new players coming in like yourself, Mark, and obviously players leaving and coming in. How have they managed to keep the culture alive of the Atlanta squad?
Yeah, it's good. We were just coming off a bye week there, so there's a good few of us. Actually, Jeremy, fair play to him, organised an Airbnb in South Carolina, Isle of Palm Beach. It was unbelievable. So, like, obviously, you need to have stuff like that. You can't. Rugby obviously is your job and stuff, but you need to get away from a small bit. It's physically tasking, and it also can be mentally tasking. But it was great to get a couple. I think there was 12 or 11 of us. We got a house down there and just chilled by the pool and lovely beaches. So the culture is very good down here. It was class. I loved last weekend. It was great.
Jeremy, talk us through your organisation skills. I know what kind of a clown you're working with Marco. Good to hear that you're an organizer and sort of setting things up so the boys can have a bit of a good time.
It's a good plan. Yeah.
No comment, is that?
Oh God.
Towards all these guys for last week when we had Giddo and Adam Ashley Cooper here on the show, they were talking about living by the beach. These guys making their beach trips. When are you all in New York going to head out like to the Jersey Shore or like out to the Hamptons or something, out east towards Long Island?
Well,
I don't think Will Leonard's allowed out there, is he?
Liverpool can afford the Hamptons, so Jersey City might be more. Jersey Shore might be a bit more our ballpark.
What more you've seen? Is that it? Jersey Shore. Okay. All right.
Well, we bring Mark O'Keefe now. He's dyed his hair blonde like that. He'll fit.
I
right.
could definitely
Fit right in. Okay,
I'll
you'll
be up
fit right in. You'll be a celebrity at the Jersey Shore right away.
Please God.
Right.
Who's the biggest character at Atlanta? Apart from you, Mark O'Keefe.
That was going to be my pick.
Connor Keys is pretty funny. Ross Deacon, you remember Deco, obviously.
Yeah,
he's good.
Deco. Yeah. Is he still playing the guitar and singing songs?
Still playing the guitar, singing songs. Yeah. What's new?
Yeah, Aaron Matthews.
Oh yeah.
Sorry,
Eamon Matthews.
I don't know how I messed up. It was my roommate. I don't mess up his name.
Hey, is Eamon your roommate? Eamon's your roommate?
Eamon's my roommate. He said I can say what's up to you.
Yeah, tell Eamon that. Does he still have that haircut that like just?
Yeah.
Oh, tell him, please. Do not like. Look, people in New Zealand, they play great rugby, but man, those haircuts are not okay. Like, that is just like
that's a good flow to it, you know.
He used to be a clean cut, private high school kid. Wore his shirt and tie to school every day. There was his hair code. There was a dress code. And he has just totally just chucked that stuff out the window with that mullet thing that he has going on.
ATL. If he came to ATL, it changed his ways.
How's he doing? How's Eamon doing down there? How's he holding up?
Oh, he's doing pretty good, man. He's one of the smartest IQ guys on our team, and man, he's such a clutch player. And he's so funny. He's just constant.
No, he is. I worked with Eamon when he was quite young, and so I knew from when he was young, like you said, he just has a good mind for the game. And as an American skill player, I'm really excited for him as a 9 to be going through that pathway, right? And to hear someone else sort of validate that is awesome, because I know that Eamon sees the game really well, and to know that his teammates have that level of respect for him, that he does know the game is awesome. And I'm excited for him. I think he's still really young. He's only just out of school. I think he's only 24, I think, right?
Yeah, 23, he's probably 24.
Yeah.
He's really young. He's such a young kid.
He is. He's still young. So I'm excited to see where this MLR journey takes him, because I think that he's a guy that can add value to a lot of programs, whether it's in ATL or if he ever comes back up here, forwards back home to New York. He'll have an immediate fan base up here. Me being one of them for sure. So count me in the Eamon Matthews fan club. Absolutely.
So boys, obviously the East Conference is wide open at the moment. The West Conference, LA are sort of running away with it. But I think you'd agree that it's been a bit of a weird one for the East Conference. Obviously, you guys beating Toronto, losing to us getting smashed by Toronto, NOLA turning over Toronto. Everyone's beating everyone. It's very up in the air. What do you think that Atlanta need to do moving forward to be competing this year or maybe even next year to be winning championships? Consistency.
Personally, I think for this year, I'd say we just need to cut out the drop balls and stuff. I think, and cut out our penalty count. I think our penalty count has been. Someone said it's the highest in the league. Obviously, it's quite tough. You can't really win games when you've done stuff like that. But I think as a team, as a unit, we are 100% dedicated to being there in August and start of August 1st, August 2nd, to try and do something to try and win the title. So I don't think we're about. Obviously, you always want to build, and for next year, obviously, we'd love to be there again. But I still think as a team, we're solely committed to try and winning this thing this year.
And Jeremy, what in terms of your playing style? Some games you've dominated, and one of the games you've sort of faltered. What for you to be performing right at the top of your level? has injuries affected your team? Has rotation, have people been rotated? Has that been affecting your team, or do you just think it's just?
I would say both. You know, we've had some big injuries, and yeah, we just rotate players, and sometimes it's, you know, the cohesion's not there yet. You know, I mean, we're coming away mid-season, so hopefully we start, you know, just hitting all cylinders.
You're both sort of similar players in a sense of that you both can play in the midfield, but you can also both play on the outside. Do you prefer a specific position? Do you prefer being in the midfield? Do you prefer being a finisher on the outside? I know everyone always has that standard answer of wherever I can get on the field is where I'll play, right? Like that's, you know, take that out of the equation. I'm not your coach. You don't have to say that. Like where do you actually see yourself as adding the most value, having the biggest impact, and possibly having the most fun on the field?
I prefer in the midfield.
I knew that was coming.
Just run it straight, like just run it straight.
Yeah, I have to be with Mark. You know, I prefer in midfield as well because I want to touch the ball.
Feed them the rock, folks. Get them in the midfield.
I know. Well, listen, I feel sorry for the guys who have to play on the wing while these two play in the centre because it doesn't sound like much ball's coming out.
So if you had asked Foles that question, Foles just wants to make it all look good. So he'll stay on the outside and be like, listen, Mark, Jeremy, you guys run it up straight. You guys suck everybody in up the middle and then just chuck it to me and I'll make it look good at the end. That's
Mike, you're finally figuring out. You finally figured it out. It's exactly what I want. It's like in defense as well. Like people try and put me in defensive meetings. I'm like, why are you putting me in defensive? I don't want to tackle.
Yeah.
Fullback. The idea is I don't make tackles.
Don't tackles, yeah.
If I am tackling, you lot are doing something wrong in the midfield and on the edges.
There you
go. Well, fellas, listen, thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed your weekend down in South Carolina, away from rugby for a little while, but a lot of work to look forward to through the rest of the season. I know you've got that mark on your calendar for the championship later this summer. It's been a pleasure having you on the show this evening. Thanks for sharing everything and all things Rugby Atlanta. We're excited to continue to watch you guys light it up. And Fodes, anything from you?
I'm just delighted to see these two guys ripping up, scoring tries, you know, and they're exciting players to watch. Both these two guys, as soon as they get the ball in their hands, you're excited to see what they're going to do, whether they're going to sidestep someone, bowl someone over, or just run one in from 50 meters. So glad to see that you're both enjoying the season and shining, and hopefully you won't shine too much more because you know, you are on the East Conference. So we still want to try and take that top spot too. But yeah, delighted for you both to play really well. Keep up the good work, boys.
Thanks very much, lads. Cheers.
Yeah. Hey, Folden, I got one question for you. So when I played in Utah, I remember playing against you when back in Utah, and my 15-minute tackling on you, and coming back to it was a 20-minute break. They said your hair smelled good. It was random. I was like, what? Why are you talking about this guy's hair? So I want to know what do you put in your hair? It was so absurd.
Whatever the
I love you.
That's mental.
So I want to know what do you use your hair? Because you had another grown man. Your hair smelled good.
I think I use whatever my missus has got lying around in the shower, to be honest. So this is where I should try and get a shampoo gig or something.
There you go.
Pantene Pro V.
Jeremy, congratulations. The best question so far on the show, hands down. That award right now, you're holding that title. Best question on the show, putting Foden on the spot about his hair product in the game is amazing. I love it. That is unreal.
Let's go.
I'm Danny Kerr, and you're watching USA Rugby Clubhouse.
Okay, for our second guest on the USA Rugby Clubhouse, we have none other than a good friend of mine. We started back when we were like 16, 17 years old, back in the academy system. He's gone on to do great things. He's a stalwart of English rugby, the second most capped scrum half for England ever, I think, and a really good friend of mine, Mr. Danny Kerr, who's also just got 300 games for Quins last weekend. Was it, Danny?
It was right, yeah. 300 games, mate. It just makes me feel really old. But, mate, it's great to see your face. I can see that the States are doing you very well. You look great. There's a couple of greys in the beard.
There is, mate. I got a bit of salt and pepper in there. Yeah, I'm trying to go for the refined look, you see.
You're rocking it, mate. You look great. So great to catch up, mate. Great to thanks for having me on.
No, mate, honestly, it's going to be awesome chatting to you, because one of the reasons I wanted to chat to you as well, Danny, is because you're a little younger than me, similar age to me. To be fair, you're still carving up in the Premiership at the moment, especially with the way Quins are playing. And it seems that you and Alex Dombrant have got this sort of 8-9 little partnership. He makes the breaks offloads for you. You put him in a bit of space. He gives it back to you. And you're sort of like vibing off each other very much in the Premiership. But you're playing great rugby. But I see you as a typical MLR, recruitment. I'd see you coming into the league, maybe in your last 1 or 2 years, and just lighting it up and enjoying yourself. And because they like to play top of the ground rugby here, they're not too bothered about defenses, as we see by some of the scores that we have.
Perfect.
I think it would suit you and the way you play. So first and foremost, would there be any interest in seeing Danny Kerr over in the MLR, following Chris Robshaw's footsteps?
Yeah, I think hopefully be a bit more successful than Robbo. Was it 1 game, 1 tackle and 1 dislocated shoulder? So yeah, surely couldn't be much worse than that. But no, we look at it over here, and it's something that I'd never really thought about. I'd never really thought about playing abroad until I saw the LA Giltini's team, Benjamin, and I was like, hang on, I like their kit, I like where they play, I like the place that they're from. And I think I might be a good fit for that. Or if it's not the Giltinis, it's definitely something that I'd have a look at, mate. From speaking to you, hearing from you, you see obviously Matt Gitto, Adam Ashley Cooper over there at the moment. It looks awesome. It looks fun rugby. I love the commentators, mate. I think the commentators are brilliant. I think the English game could take a leaf out of their book. So yeah, definitely, mate. You never know. I've got 1 more year at Harlequins signed up, but I'm enjoying my rugby. I feel fit. I feel fresh. I feel like I've got a few more years still in the tank then,
That is another thing I need to ask you about. How have you managed to stay fit and healthy? Like, obviously I'm still playing, but not quite to the height that you're playing, I'm constantly moaning about my back, my shoulder, my knees. There is always something wrong with me every time I take the field. But watching you look like a sprightly 19, 20-year-old Danny Kerr again. You're still scoring tries, you're still sniping, I tell you what I really like about you at the moment is the kicking game has gone to a whole new level. It's just sort of like very blasé, like the look away and just dunk it through a hole for the centers to run onto and things like that. You're playing with like the confidence of, a guy who still has 8-9 years left in him. What's the secret, Danny? What's the secret?
I do feel like I've had a bit of a new lease of life, Foes, I'll be honest. I think the lockdown was really tough, obviously mentally for everyone, and a lot of people in all sorts of strife. But I think for me, it gave me a bit of a break, mentally gave me a break, but also physically. And I think that's maybe put an extra year or two, hopefully, on my career. I trained hard in the off season, but I also chilled out a lot. So it wasn't forced training. It was training that I felt like my body needs. And at Harlequins are great with me, mate. They understand what my body needs. They don't push me to be chasing personal bests in speed times or in the gym. They know what I need to do each week to prepare for the weekend. And I think the way we're trying to play, mate, suits me. It's an attacking brand of rugby, heads up rugby, but play what you see. With also an element of control with the kicking stuff. So yeah, I'm loving it, mate. I'm loving it at the moment. As you say, I'm not getting any younger, but the players that I'm playing with, you mentioned Alex Dombrant earlier, who is just an unbelievable player. Can't wait to see him in a white shirt with England soon. But Marcus Smith is my halfback partner. Yeah. He's just turned 22. We're on different ends of the scale in terms of our rugby careers, but playing with lads like that definitely keep me on my toes, but also keep me young, mate.
Well, you can be Peter Pan and he can be Rufio, because that's what I did when I played him. Rufio! And then all Peter Pan here, just rolling back the years. But you two are carving up. It's brilliant to watch. I think both of your mindset, you've got lots of flair between the two of you, which is nice to see from halfbacks. You need guys who are going to create opportunities. And Marcus Smith is really doing that in that 10 shirt. And Quins were sort of like in a weird place. Obviously, you had your change of management. Guzzy came in and changed things around, and then they stuttered a little bit, and then Guzzy's gone, and you know, you've sort of regrouped, I'd say, and sort of it seems like there's a bit more of a spring in everyone's step at Quins. You're starting to really piece together a season, and it looks like you should be, you know, making that top 4 spot and going on to compete for in the finals, hopefully.
Yeah, that's the aim, Pops. It's been a long time since we were up there in a semi-final, and you know what it's like, mate. You get into a semi-final, you're 2 games away from lifting the big prize, and the 2 standout teams this year have been Bristol and Exeter. I think they're going to finish first and second, and it's probably between ourselves, Sale, and Northampton for that 5th spot. But we're just enjoying it, mate. We're enjoying our rugby. I think Guzzy was brilliant for the club. He instilled some great detail into the way we exit the ball, into some of our defensive stuff. He brought some great things for us. Unfortunately, the full journey didn't work with him. But now our main emphasis since he's been gone has been fun, which for me, coming to the end of my career, and what I'm like, I love to have fun, and our main word in training every day is enjoyment. So we get the ball in our hands. All our forwards now feel a lot more comfortable with ball in hand because it's what we're training. We're training it every day, and then you can see it on the weekends. So it's great, mate. We know that we're not the best team yet. We know we're not that, but we think on our day we could mix it and match it with anyone. So yeah, we're hoping we get into a semi-final, mate. And then, like I say, we'll have to go away to one of those top teams, but we've been away to both of them not so long ago and lost by a point both games. So I think we hopefully will learn some lessons from that.
All right, Danny, and I want to roll the clock back now because obviously I've known you a long time, back when you were in the academy at Leeds and playing for Leeds, and I was back at Sale. And I don't know if you noticed, but the other day I was playing in Hotlanta and our 9 got sin bin. So old Foden had to go and step back into the 9 shoes just for 10 minutes. And the referee sort of tapped me on the shoulder at the first scrum and said, "Do you know what you're doing here?" And I was like, "Do I know what I'm doing here? I played for England. The first cap I ever got was for England." And it made me think of you because you were supposed to start that game against Italy. I don't know if you remember, under Jono. And me, you, and Shay Garrity, it was snowing and we took some tackle-backs.
I suppose I've never said this story before.
It doesn't matter though. We were out the mix, man. So that's a long time ago. And we tried to go surfing down the snowy hills at Penny Hill Park, and old DC managed to slip off his bag and roll his ankle. And from that, I was like, Danny was like, "Oh no, it's really bad." And obviously we're all worried, and we didn't want to tell anyone what would happen. So we were all worried. And anyway, I was thinking, yeah, happy days, Danny's injured. I'm going to be starting. This is going to be my moment. Anyway, the coaches didn't trust me enough, so they all brought in old Harry Ellis, who then he got the start. He got man of the match, scored
2 tries, yeah.
Got man of the match, and then next thing he was going on a Lions tour, and me and you were sat holding our lunches and cleaning his boots. So, Danny, I think you ruined my 9 career. I think that if you'd have started, that I'd have come off the bench. I wouldn't have tried to do so much, and then maybe I'd have been in the mix a little bit more. But old Harry Ellis jumped ahead of you, jumped ahead of me. I was back to number 3. And then playing fullback. But mate, yeah, that was an awesome weekend.
Oh, yeah, not for me, mate. I was so sore. I remember just giving the large one, thinking, yeah, we're going to do a bit of sledging, and then turning my ankle and thinking, I can't tell him I did it sledging. So remember, I had to hobble into the physio room and say, "I've just slipped on some ice in the car park." And I remember Jono went mental, I think, at the hotel staff. Was like, right, and they're out there spreading all this salt and sand on the thing. Oh yeah, and then I missed the first game. Harry came in, and then he had the shirt the whole time, didn't he?
Yeah, I was so yeah. As soon as you were back fit, I think that was my only game.
Sorry, mate. But how did you go at 9 at the weekend? How was that 10 minutes?
It was all right, actually. Yeah, we won 7-0 when I was on. So
there you go. A few snipes.
I've still got it. Yeah, 10 minutes is all I can do, though, mate.
Yeah. So different level at 9.
And how have you been speaking to your old mucker, Chris Robshaw? He said that West Coast is where you're looking. I agree with you, Danny. I think LA, Hollywood for Danny Kerr, playing rugby in the day, shooting movies at night. I think that's got Danny Kerr written all over. But obviously, Chris Robshaw,
flew out to Vegas. I was a bit like, oh, I don't know how long you want to be stuck in Vegas for, but luckily they've gone back to San Diego now. And you mentioned that he's done his shoulder in his first game, 1 tackle, 1 dislocated shoulder. But he's out there for 2 years. But have you been following him? You spoke to him. How's he enjoying it out there?
Yeah, I think he's really enjoying the experience. I think him and Camilla, they wanted something a bit different. He's obviously been at Quins his whole life. And I think he was genuinely really, really excited about going out there and exploring and seeing a bit of the world and doing something a little bit different, which I think he says it's certainly been different. It's been eventful. They've been here, there, and everywhere, packed from different places, moved city twice. I think they're now back in San Diego, which I think he's loving. I think he's really, really enjoying it. I think they're expecting their baby fairly soon as well. So his life's about to get a whole lot more difficult, mate. He wants to get his sleep in whilst he can. But yeah, no, I think he's really enjoying it. And I think seeing people you like yourself, like Robbo, like Gitz and Ashley Cooper, I think you get more and more people thinking, do you know what? I like the sound of that. I'll have a bit of that. So yeah, hopefully there'll be more and more world-class players over there to play in, I think I'd still say, an untapped market, really, because the potential you must feel it must be huge over there.
It really is, Danny. Do you follow American sports? Do you follow
I do.
NFL and basketball?
I do, yeah.
Well, you'll know from speaking to me as well and what I was like as a player. I always kind of liked the hype that comes around games. And I liked it when people, the press used to drum up stuff and create beef between teams and players and that sort of thing. And although the rugby is all, it's a bit prim and proper over in England. Like we don't like to be too arrogant. They don't want anyone bigger than the game. And, you want everyone to be respectful, and you all do your media training, so you don't say anything wrong in the media. Whereas in America, it's completely different. Everything's, everyone's the best player in the world. Everyone talks himself up. Everyone's the world champion. And, the things that go on at games, you've got, mascots, you've got, the Bills Mafia who are jumping through tables. They do tailgating. They've got cheerleaders. They have guys firing cannons into the crowd. They have, $500,000 cross-sport challenges, all this sort of stuff. I love it. And I love that about American sport. And, I watch highlights of the NBA and you see them like dunking and 3-pointers. I actually go to an NBA match. They miss all the time. I thought the whole game was people slam dunking and shooting threes. They miss constantly. It's just back and forth, action. And when it stops and the cheerleaders kick in and it's more action, and it's more like a whole family event. Whereas rugby, I feel in England is more of a purist. You have to be like a rugby fan to go and watch rugby. Whereas I think the American culture and the idea is that they make it a family event. There's something for everyone. Do you know what I mean? That's with the mascot, with the halftime parades and performances at halftime. And we're seeing that in the MLR grow into it a bit more, especially with the LL Giltinis and Austin Gilgronis. They're starting to do a lot more. Do you think, though, if rugby does take off in America and becomes like a powerhouse in terms of, even if it takes 10% of what the NFL earn, that means guys will be making $5-6 million a year. Could you see the face of rugby changing in England as well, thinking, we've got to match this because their season is shorter, they're encompassing a whole different crowd in terms of family environment, tailgating, that sort of stuff. And even like names on the shirts, when you speak to American people, they want names on the shirts just for, one, so people learn the players easier, and two, for revenue in terms of shirt sales and stuff. And it makes sense to me when they speak to me about that. Do you see that creeping into the game of England, maybe?
Yeah, I think rugby's something that always has to evolve, and it's hard sometimes. I think if you turn on a game of rugby in England, there's so many laws that if you weren't a massive rugby fan, you'd be lost because you wouldn't really understand what's going on. And like you say, there probably isn't the fanfare, the music, the fireworks, the commentators probably aren't as enthusiastic about the game than you see in American sports. So I can massively see there's definitely a market for, if America got this right, and I think if talking for players, if contracts were a bit bigger than what they are at the moment, and there was opportunities to go and live in, let's be honest, some amazing places in America, and play rugby and get paid for it, and only have to play half the games that you play over here, I think you'd get a lot of world-class players wanting to head that way. Obviously, over here, when you're trying to play for England, you can't leave because as soon as you leave the country, you're not eligible to play for your country anymore. So that will keep a lot of the younger guys there. But I'd imagine if, someone's halfway through your career, if someone had said to you, Fodes, at 25, 26, look, come and play in New York, come and play in LA. We're going to pay you more money than you're on at home. You'll play less games, and I promise you'll probably have a bit more fun. I think you would definitely look at it. So I'd love to see it blow up, mate. I'd love to see you as the main guy out there, just repping it for all everyone out there, and it would be huge. And then you'd see loads of people coming over there to play.
Well, we talked to George Kilbrew, who's the commissioner of the league, and he thinks in the next 4 or 5 years there'll be 32 teams in the MLR.
Wow.
They think it'll turn like NFL, that every year 2 more, 3 more are jumping in. Dallas are joining next year. There's talks of Chicago. There was talks of a Hawaii team. So there are, it is, the upside of it is massive, and they're doing it right, Danny. To be fair, I know, like, I'm with you. I want everyone to get paid loads of money and do it, but at the start, you've got to grow it organically, and there's no point in sort of having a checkbook and bringing in, Danny Kerr, Bowden Barrett, all the foreigners. What they need to do is they need to home grow it. They need to get the talent. So they need to get it in high schools, colleges, and then hopefully the conveyor belt into the MLR, and then they'll have a team that be able to compete at World Cups. And there's rumors that America are going to get the 2031 World Cup, which would be massive, because I think that would be the injection of sort of excitement that would be needed in terms of like propelling the sport onwards and upwards. But interestingly, you talk about it like that. I've talked about it quite openly as well, but a teammate, an old teammate, well, he's still a teammate of yours, Mike Brown, was just recently heard saying on a interview, that rugby is a business, and us as players, we need to realize that earlier on, because when it comes to us signing contracts with teams, it's always like, oh, you owe us, or you need to be grateful for the opportunity and show us loyalty. But when it comes to the other way around and the clubs no longer need your services, it's sort of like, oh, thanks for doing it. It's nothing personal, it's business. And I'm a big advocate of that. That yes, we're very privileged that we get to play a game that we love for a living, but at the same time, we only sort of, we give up most players give up their education as well. You come into this game at 18, so you don't go to university, you don't get a degree. You come into it at 18, and you have, if you're lucky, 12 years, 13, 14 years to sort of like max it out and get paid. And, listening to Brownie speak about, his service to Quins and the way it was sort of dealt with is just sort of like a wake-up call for me to players. Obviously, like, Quins have been very good to Brownie, but he just didn't like the way, it was sort of sorted in 2 minutes. He thought there'd be more to it. And the same sort of happened to me at Northampton as well, Danny, if I'm honest, that it came to a point where there was just so much faffing around that no one was really talking to me. The communication broke down, and it just seemed to me that they didn't want me anymore. And that's where I felt like I need to make the decision myself to leave. Are you a similar mindset, like a younger Danny Kerr, or are you happy with the decisions you've made? I know you've got very good agents, because I used to have the same agents in Big Mark Sports who've done a great job for you. But, do you sit down with younger players and warn them about, what it's like being a professional rugby player? And as it gets more and more professional and more cutthroat and more business-like, players need to be looked after even more.
Yeah, I think you speak a lot of sense, mate. I think I've learned an awful lot in my time, and like you said, I'm similar to you. Didn't have a chance to go to university. Didn't have a chance to go and learn a skill or a trade, which I wish I'd have done. To be honest, probably a bit of that's laziness, Fodes, for me, that I probably could have done, because some lads do, and they do really well. But when you're in it and you started to play Premiership rugby when you're 18, 19. It's very hard to look at the bigger picture and think, oh, well, I need this when I'm 28. For me, it was throw yourself into rugby. You have to be focused on rugby to get the best out of yourself. And I did that. And I'm very lucky that I've had a great career to date. But I look at it now and I think, God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do in 2 or 3 years' time when I'm too old to play the whole thing that I've done for my whole life? And we have to go and find a whole new career that's going to last probably as long as we've lived for. So we're very privileged. We're very lucky. We've been paid to play the sport that we love, but we don't earn enough money that you can stop and not work again, like other sports do. So I think the loyalty stuff with clubs should work two ways. I feel no one really gets the perfect send off, or it's very rare that you get the perfect send off. I think all I'd want is honesty and a bit of timing and a bit of respect, so that it can be planned better when you do transition from player to whatever you're going to do. I think you need time and you need to plan it, and that's when you speak to players that have done it the best are the ones that knew when they were going to retire because they planned for it and they had the next thing ready. The guys that have it forced upon them, whether that's forced to move clubs and go and live in a different place or forced to stop playing altogether, I think they're the ones that really struggle. And mental health is massive in sport, and especially in young men. And a lot of us struggle. We don't talk about it. A lot of lads don't talk about stuff. So I do agree, mate. I do. And when I probably rambled on a bit there, but my advice massively to young players coming through is, be loyal to the club and they should be loyal to you, but also look after yourself. Like if you've got big opportunity to go and earn some good money that will help set you and your family up for the rest of your life, have a good think about it. Because like you say, we know what it's like. Injuries can happen in a second and you're done. Like you're done. So many of our mates have retired so early. So I think it's a balance. It's definitely a balance.
And things like, it's interesting as well, because I remember I spoke to the RPA my last couple of years being at Northampton and said, there was some people, some financial, advisors had come to me and said, we'd love to sit down with the club at Northampton and talk to your young guys coming through. And I was like, you know what, that would be great, because that's something that I never spoke to when I was a young man. And I think, like you said, when you're 18 and 19 and suddenly you're making good money, you think you're invincible, you think the money's going to last forever, and you blow through it all. And then suddenly you get to an age of 27, 28, and you start thinking, Jesus, I need to start saving and preparing. And you meet a woman and you get married and you're having kids. And then that's when it all sort of hits you. But I remember I tried to get someone to come in, and the RPA said they couldn't do it because they wouldn't take responsibility if the financial advisor came in and gave you bad advice and lost money. So I'm just thinking how, because rugby players don't earn the same amount of money as footballers, for instance, where footballers earn millions of dollars a year, millions of pounds a year. So they sit down with a financial investor who says, this is your money to spend, put this much money into bricks and mortar, this into investments, blah, blah, blah. Whereas rugby players is a little bit more difficult because, I think the average, I remember speaking to Christian Day, who was the RPA rep, last year or this year. And I think the average player earns 150 grand a year. If you're in the starting team, 22 or whatever of a Premiership team. And for a financial investor, that's not that much money to work with. But, if you invest that money well, that can give you a nice, pot of money to sort of retire on, or like you said, give yourself, a pot of money to then go and find another business or another passion that you can sort of invest in your future in. How can the Premiership and rugby in general help young players coming through realize that from an early age that, you have 12 years to sort of get your affairs in order and before you have to move on and do something completely different?
Yeah, I think it's education. I think it's definitely education and it's help. I think most clubs now will have a player development sort of officer manager. We got a guy like Andy Sanger, who's ex-military, who is brilliant, one of the nicest, best blokes ever, and he'll from day one get you in, speak and talk about. He won't talk about rugby. He'll talk about you as a person. Like for me, Danny Care. What does Danny Care going to look like when he's 35, 36? How can I help you and your family be happy, be healthy, and be in a good place when you retire? So we've got a great guy there, and I'm sure most clubs have got a similar one now. But like you say, back when we started, we didn't have that. And I remember when I signed my first contract with Quins, which as a 19-year-old, I was like, wow, this money is ridiculous. And our first thing I did was buy a brand new Range Rover Sport. And I look back at it now, folks, and I'm like, what was I thinking? The most ridiculous purchase ever. A little lad, I came down in a blue Fiat Punto from Leeds, and I was like, this is it. This is my dream. I'm buying a black Range Rover Sport. And I paid, it was a lot of money. It was a lot of money. And I think back and I think, if someone had just said to me, no, let's just scrap that. let's maybe look at a lease deal of something, you know, a little bit less, maybe a little Merc or a Beamer or something like that. I probably should have done that. But also, like, moving to London, I wish someone had said, look at property in this or this area, because property for me is probably your best bet in terms of the safe-ish option, and especially down in London. I wish someone had said, buy one here, buy one here, buy one here, like somewhere. I ended up buying one in the middle of nowhere because it had a nice living room, folks, with a decent garden. And I was like, why didn't someone, if I just had someone to say, who knew the area, to go, no, like, this is probably what's going to happen. So yeah, I think as a young player, you need guidance. You know what we were like when 19, 20. All we cared about was playing rugby, playing computer games, playing cards, gambling a little bit, going on nights out and drinking. Like that was it. And that was a brilliant time with no worries. But I wish someone had got hold of us. So I try and help the lads that are coming through now. So Marcus Smith, for example, I feel responsible to help him throughout his life, not almost like as a big brother type thing, to say, I'm trying to get in and, you know, so to buy a house, like maybe look at buying a house here, because this is where this is going to help. And I hope that I'm trying to take the failings that I did, then try and help lads out by not doing what I did when I was younger.
100%, yeah. And you talk about the RPA. That has been a big thing for Premiership Rugby, and they're trying to do that over here in some regards with a few groups that are popping up. But with rugby that's growing in America, it's just, you know, baby steps. Obviously the teams and the coaches, but obviously I think that's going to be so important for the growth of the game in America. The MLR are now linked up with USA Rugby as well, which never happened when I first started, which I thought was crazy. How could you have a professional league running in America without it being linked up to USA Rugby? Because that's all, they should all be have their ducks aligned in terms of trying to grow rugby across America. And now that's happening. I can see that the RPA and that sort of stuff. And I think that it's something that's a little bit more, you know, sought after in American sport as well. But you do hear horror stories about NFL players who, you know, they have a big entourage and they're making millions of dollars, and suddenly they blow out a knee and no one's going to re-sign them. And suddenly they go from, you know, owning a big mansion or leasing a big mansion, having all these fancy cars, to having nothing. And it's something that does happen in American sport quite often. And, you know, hopefully I think that rugby will have a different stance on this and looking at other leagues. And so I'm hopeful that the MLR will have the right people in order to sort of look after their young players. But like I said, another good thing about American sport, Danny, is that they go to university and they get a degree before they come and play American sport.
Yeah, again, another thing, like I say, I wish I'd have done, even if it was a part-time course that took me 5 years to do it, and I could pick and choose when I did it. And I know a lot of lads have done that and sets them up very well, but it was hard. I think hard for, especially if you're playing well, you get a sniff around an international call-up. So for us, what we were playing at 21, 22, playing for England, playing regularly for your club, it's hard then to find the time to think, I'm going to go and study. And back then, I reckon some of the coaches would be like, oh, you probably shouldn't do that because you need to be focused on your rugby. If you're not focused on your rugby, there'll be someone else focused who's focused. I think definitely there's been, and I think the RPA really helped with this over here, is opening doors to other opportunities, to other things that you are inspired by or you want to look to get into. They'll find a way to put you on the right path. I never did it as a young lad, but again, something I say to all our young boys coming through is get a degree. Just get a degree, because one of my best friends, John Turner Hall, put his body and soul on the line week in, week out for Harlequins. He's got a hip replacement already. He had to retire at 27, 28. And you just think, like, he did it doing the thing he loved, and he did it for the club he loved and for the boys, like putting his body through the ringer. But he come out of it, and fair play. It's taken George probably 5 years to get to where he wants to be now. Now he's doing really well with coaching. But he had some really, really tough times. And that's probably just one example of someone that I wish had a bit more help when they were younger.
Definitely, yeah. I know Jordan well. He seems to be doing very well in the coaching world. He's still sticking around in rugby, which is great to see. Last question, Danny. Obviously, like, I've known you for a long time. I knew what you were like as a young man bouncing around London. But obviously, I think a turning point for you is obviously you met your lovely wife, Jodie, and you've had 2 kids. And people always say that can sort of put a lot of pressure on your performance as well, because, you know, when you've got young kids, you know, waking up in the night and doing the feeds and helping the wife out and that sort of stuff. But for me, I always felt that with you and Jodie, you just sort of like, it just seemed to come at a really good time for you. You never really dated girls either. You were never really a dater, were you? You're a bit of a ladies' man. And then suddenly Jodie's the one who sort of like tamed the wild Danny Care. And now you've got 2 young, beautiful kids. And you seem happier than ever. Is that part of it as well? Having a good woman, but behind every good man, there's a great woman, or something like that?
Yeah, you're exactly right, mate. Look, I'm a big believer in things that happen for a reason. And in 2013, I thought I had a sniff of going on the Lions tour, didn't get in, and then there was an England tour to Argentina where a load of the Lions lads weren't going to be there. And I remember Stuart Lancaster said, look, Dan, you've had a long season. I know you're gutted about the Lions. Do you want to come to Argentina and play 2 tests with England with a young squad, or do you want to have a break? And it was a big call for me to not go to Argentina. But I said, look, Stu, I really appreciate it. If I could take the summer off, that would be amazing for me, because we never get the chance to do that. Normally you're touring and you get 2 weeks off and you're back to another season. So I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I went to Thailand with Jordan Turner Hall, my best mate. We went for a 2-week holiday, and on full moon night in Koh Phangan, I remember I saw this girl, and I was like, I said to Jordan, I was like, mate, that's it, I'm done. That's her. And he's like, what do you mean that's her? And I was like, she's I'm gonna marry that girl, mate. I'm gonna marry that girl. Went over and chatted to her, and I was like, given the large one, she obviously didn't like me. She thought I was a bit of a twat. And I was like, okay, cool, it's fine. But then we said, oh, if we see each other tonight, like it's meant to be, whatever. So I went to the full moon party. There's like 60,000 people in this party. We're like, if we see each other, it'd be great. I remember we got to about 12 o'clock and Geordie came up to me. He's like, mate, I got you a present. I was like, what you got? And he had Jodie in a headlock. And he passed her to me. She thought she was getting attacked. She was like, "What's going on here? This massive dude's taking me away." And he passed me, and we were like, "Oh, here we go." And then that was it, mate. From that day, it was me done. You know, out the game. And then we're here now, 2 kids, married, been married for 5 years. But I think for me, mate, I always wanted to have kids early enough that they could see me play rugby.
Yeah.
And now I'm so lucky that Blake's at an age, he's 6.5 now, and he is like sport mad. So he cries when we lose. Like he's the happiest man in the world when we win. I'm his 2nd favourite player at Harlequins, because his favourite player is Marcus Smith. Can you believe that?
Always the way, man. Always the way.
Yeah, and Koa's 18 months now and breaks my heart every day with how cute she is. So yeah, for me, having a family, and that's why I do it. So it's given me added motivation to be successful and try and make them proud. I know that sounds a bit corny, but that for me is enough. That's why I do it, is to make them proud.
Well, you're certainly doing that at the moment, Danny. You've been a stalwart of English rugby, and you're playing some superb rugby still. Plenty left in the tank as well. And don't worry, after your stint at Harlequins is finished, I'll be putting the phone calls in, and there'll be a battle on the East Coast and the West Coast to sign Danny Care.
Lovely.
Thank you very much, Danny, for joining us on the USA Rugby Clubhouse. As always, pleasure to speak to you, bro. And I promise you, Danny, that you will love it over in the States.
Thank you, Ben. Watch this space. Just get in touch. Give me a shout.
I'll be your agent. I'll tell Mark Spores I'll be your agent in that deal.
Yeah, you can do the deal, mate. You can do the deal. Cheers, folks. Good to see you, mate.
Cheers, bud. Take care, boy. It's competition time again, guys, with the Budgie Smugglers' hidden talent. We've seen a few posts from Troy Lockyer from Rooney showing a bit of magic. Also, Max Evans joining in with a little backflip into the sea off the cliff. Some impressive entries coming in, but you could still have this opportunity to win an entire set of Budgie Smugglers for your team. All you have to do is make your video, tag USA Rugby Clubhouse, and then also use the hashtag Smugglers Hidden Talent, and you could win this fabulous prize. Good luck, guys. What a fantastic show we just had. Obviously, chatting to the guys from Atlanta, seeing what things down there are like, going to the Snake Pit, the Rattlers. I love all that. I think it's a great nickname for those. And obviously, speaking to our old mucker, Mark O'Keefe, aka the Cowboy, who seems to be lighting it up and really enjoying his time down in Atlanta. So great to see him really shining in this MLR league. But obviously, we've got other games now. This week, we only had 4 games, but we've got 6 games coming up next week, Mikey. So we're going to look at them one by one. You're going to give us your picks. I think we've been getting a lot better at the picks over the last couple of weeks. So there's going to be a few tough games this weekend, though. And especially as, you always say you have an alliance to Rooney. But is this the first week you're not going to back us and you're going to back the LA as LA come down to New York to play in that game?
Oh, Foles, my heart tells me New York, right? My heart tells me that New York is going to pull this one out. But I think it's going to be a big ask. I think Los Angeles is a very, very good side. If I think there's any team in the league that's capable of beating Los Angeles, I do think it is New York, because I think that you all do have on paper a team that is championship worthy. But I have to say, I know I'm going to be hated in your locker room this week, folks, but I am having a hard time going against Los Angeles. So it's on paper, I'm going LA. In my heart, I'm New York all the way through, and I will be super psyched if you guys pull this one out over the weekend.
Okay, I'll forgive you, Mikey, because they are a team in form, but obviously I don't comment on those games because I only think one team's going to win that one, and we'll see what happens at the weekend. But another good game. Houston are traveling to NOLA after NOLA putting in a massive performance against Toronto. Houston have a week off, so they'll be fresh. We've seen a different Houston team over the last couple of weeks as well. I think the introduction of Nick Boyd from LA has really added them another dimension. He's been that sort of nine that they've needed, and the back line actually looked very good for Houston when they're on there fit. I think they found a good mesh of youth and experience. Sam Windsor at 12 has been the shining light for them as well, and they've been managed to score tries. I don't, however, think they have enough firepower to take out NOLA at NOLA. I just think NOLA at NOLA are a different beast. I think they're going to take a lot of confidence from beating Toronto. They know as well how important this game is going to be for them to win if they're going to try and top the East Conference. So there could be a bit of movement, I think, in the East Conference this week, obviously with Rooney playing LA, a tough game, but NOLA taking on Houston. And if they win that, it probably puts them top of the league, especially if they do it with 5 points. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the gold mine down there in New Orleans is a tough place to play. I think that New Orleans is coming off a week where they have the tails up. Like we said, when you got that confidence going, it's like a runaway train. And they were playing well toward the end there against Toronto. And I think Toronto has shown that they are a world beater type team these past couple of weeks. And so for New Orleans to put in a performance like that, as well as Houston's been playing and as much energy as Nick Boyer has brought to their program from the halfback spot, I'm going NOLA this one.
Okay, and the next game, the team that's fast becoming my favorite team, Austin Gilgronis. Obviously, they're the small brother to the LA Giltinis, who are getting all the highlights and sort of the champagne rugby. Obviously, having Matt Gitto and Adam Ashley Cooper there, but I'm really enjoying watching Austin play. They're playing against a very good Free Jacks team who are very confident off the back of a good win again at the weekend. It's going to be a tough game. I want Austin to win, obviously, because the Free Jacks are in the East Conference, but I think Free Jacks are a side that could definitely turn it around. And I think being at home, I'd probably go the Free Jacks to beat Austin.
I think for me, this is going to be a really, really good game. Like you said, I think this might be one of those back and forth battles the entire time. I think if they were playing in Austin, I would have picked Austin. But I think, like you said, I think playing in New England, I think I'm going to go with New England this time.
And then the next game, an interesting one, because obviously Atlanta and Toronto are both playing at Life. That's both their home at the moment. But it's the rematch of Atlanta versus Toronto at life again. So we saw in the opening game of the season that Atlanta sort of took a big scalp, and we were thinking that Toronto were really struggling living away from home, not being in Toronto. But I think Toronto have sort of turned things around now. Obviously, a disappointing result for them against NOLA. It's going to be an interesting game, but I think that if Toronto play the way they did against us in New York, I think that they're going to be a different beast, and they're a bit too much to handle for Atlanta, even though Atlanta are a very strong side, and especially when they play at home. I just can't. There's something about Toronto that I really like in the way they play. So I'm going Toronto.
I agree. The back line for Toronto is unbelievable. I mean, their acceleration through the midfield is spectacular, and their back three is just electric. I mean, we were talking about them before, just dotting down a couple of tries, and like every time I turn on Toronto, someone from their back three is scoring. So it's I think, like we said, I think Toronto's turned the corner here. I think that Atlanta is a good team at home, but I do think, theoretically, Toronto is also at home in this particular situation. They're not going for it, right? They're just driving down the road. So I'm going to go Toronto here.
And then the last fixture is DC versus Utah. DC coming off the back of a bit of a hiding from LA, but nothing's new there. They had moments where they looked good, but they're playing a Utah team that have been up and down very quickly. They look like world beaters at the beginning of the season. They seem to have dropped off. Can they turn it around, Mikey? Can you see Utah turning it around, having a home fixture this weekend?
I think they can. I don't think they'll turn it around to the degree that they'll compete with the likes of Los Angeles at the top of the Western Conference. I do think that's, anything can happen. Look, I could be eating my words in a couple months' time, but I find that probably at this point unlikely. And with that in mind, as you said, Utah has been a bit of a roller coaster this season. And depending on who shows up on the day, Utah could be seemingly one of the best teams in the league, or a team that people just walk right past and end up, with a win. So with that in mind, I think DC, even though they've not been playing their best rugby these past couple of weeks, right? I think they're sitting somewhere towards the bottom of that table, if I'm not mistaken, right, in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it's very close, though. I think
it is close.
Top five, there's only 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, and one game changes everything. Like you said, there'll be a big reshuffling. But I'm actually going to take DC. I was big on the Utah bandwagon earlier this season, but I'm going to take DC in this one.
It's all started to pan out a little bit now, and these East Coast, West Coast games, because there's only a handful of them left, are so important now, because if you can wrestle some points away from the West Coast and someone else doesn't, that's the distance that you need. And things are so close to the Eastern Conference at the moment that, one win against one unexpected win can sort of be the difference from you being first or fifth in this conference. And it's good to have that level of competition. Knows that there's no weeks off for any teams.
No, that Eastern race is going to be exciting. That's an exciting one to see through, and I think this is going to continue. This is not going to be the sort of thing where you're starting to see more separation on the West Coast. I don't think there's going to be that separation on the East Coast. I think every week, week in and week out, it's going to be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then you're going to be at the very end of the tunnel there, and like the end of July, when teams are really everything's starting to come down towards the grand finale, and it's like there's only a couple points separating like last place from first place.
I know. I think it will be one of those seasons as well. I think that it'll be decided in the last game of the season who gets that top spot and second seed, and then who knows in the final, because it seems that we've all been beating each other. So the East Conference will be I think all eyes will be on that at the end of the season. I think LA is sort of running away with the West Conference now, and everyone sort of knows that they're the team to be shot at, preparing for the one-off game when it comes to the championships. So there's going to be some. I think this week's going to be a real teller as well, because like we said, we're not playing East Coast sides. It's about the West Coast stealing points. A lot of the teams are playing away as well. I'm hoping that Rooney can put in a big performance against LA, and that'll be some points that no one ever saw coming. So a lot to look forward to. I'm all about resting my body now and getting myself ready, because obviously jet lagged, got a bit of a knee tweak as well. So trying to get on top of that. So I might be giving Troy a bit of a call and saying, Troy, how do you feel, mate? Fancy a run out this weekend, mate? Rest the old man.
just because you're playing Los Angeles Fudge. You can't get out of this one. This is where New York needs you to step up, dude. And then, you know, all of a sudden you don't come down with a knee tweak the week you play Los Angeles. That doesn't work. You can't do that. Listen, you might be the old head in the team, but you can't pull that card this week. You cannot pull that card.
Listen, I want to be on the field. This is one thing you realize as well. When you get old in life and you only got a few games left, you want to play the best. You still want to test yourself against the best and see what they're like, see where you come up and see how you measure. So, no, I'll be out on the field, give them the chance. Hopefully I'll be out there to give it one good go at LA and see if we can take a big scalp. Rock the champs. Well, the champs. We're not champs, but you know what I mean.
Jumping it a little bit, are we just saying that calling Los Angeles the champs and we're only, you know, not even halfway through the season?
Calling the Patriots, whatever you want to call it.
But look, like you said, a lot to look forward to this weekend. We've had a great show here tonight. We appreciate you coming and hang out with us in the clubhouse. So enjoy the games that are coming up. And until next week, we'll see you in the clubhouse.
Take care, guys. See you next week.